Shalom, welcome. Well, today we're talking about tithes and offerings. Now, I know this is a subject that's not very well liked or taught, but nevertheless, it's something that we need to cover. Now, this is a general view of tithes and offerings, and there are a very extensive series on this topic out there. For example, I've heard of one series being 50 CDs long, covering what the biblical tithe and offering is and what it entails. Again, this is a general view of the tithes and offerings. Now, when talking about tithes and offerings, it is not just a one-size-fits-all, which is taught in most churches today. It depends on what you mean when you are referring to talking about tithes and offerings. What tithe, what offering are you referring to? And there is an understanding of there's a one-size-fits-all, and this is what happens when you do not read the front of the book. Terms and phrases get redefined and made to fit a modern, westernized view of what the tithe and offering is all about. Today it is understood from a modern view that one gives 10% of their income to the church. And then that goes to running the church, for example, wages for the pastor or pastors, assistant pastors, depending on the size of the church. Goes to the admin cost, hiring office staff. Goes with the cost associated with running a building and owning a building and maintaining that building, etc., etc., etc. So all these tithes and offerings that get collected week in and week out predominantly goes to those different things. Now, while all these are valid reasons, there are things that are left out, and they are important things to understand. This is because most people don't read the front of the book and get an understanding of what tithe and offering is. And on top of all this, we see much corruption, overindulgence, and greed. Now, I want to share a story just for an example of this. There was a ministry that was wanting to raise $64 million for a private jet. $64 million. And they were saying that they wanted to use this jet to fly mission teams all around the world, predominantly to Africa. Now, consider that for a moment. On top of that $64 million, you've got pilots, fuel, maintenance, insurance, storage, hangar space. So the costs are phenomenal. And I thought to myself, how many tickets can $64 million buy on just a normal commercial airline? Now, in the top 10 of the top 10 richest pastors and evangelists in the world, 5 of those come from Nigeria. Caught me by surprise. With the wealthiest being in the number 1 spot with a net worth of around $150 million. 4 of the top 10 are from the USA, and 1 is from Singapore, who came in at 10th with a net worth of $5 million. Now, I need to ask the question, is this biblical? We know Yahweh wants us to be prosperous. However, Torah teaches for the king not to lay up riches of gold and silver. And we see in Deuteronomy 17:17, and it says, "Neither shall he multiply wives for himself, lest his heart turn away, nor shall he greatly multiply silver and gold for himself." So this is the instructions and teachings of Yahweh that they should not overindulge and be greedy. And I believe that this all comes about on a misunderstanding of the scriptures, manipulating the text and redefining passages and their meanings. Yes, We know Abraham, Isaac and Jacob, David, Solomon and many others were very wealthy and blessed. But it was Yahweh that blessed them. I don't know about you, but here in Australia there is a saying among Christian circles about shearing the sheep. And this is referred to taking up money and offerings. It's time to shear the sheep. These people didn't obtain their wealth by shearing the sheep. Abraham, Isaac and Jacob, they didn't obtain their wealth by shearing the sheep. There is a teaching within churches about sowing seed and partnering with different ministries. If you give so much, you'll be given back so much. This is a manipulation of different passages and not understanding the text. Yes, I do believe Yahweh will bless you and cause you to prosper, but this does not just hinge on giving money. There are many other things in play. For example, like walking in his ways, being in covenant, honouring parents, having just weights, etc., etc., etc. And another story I want to share with you of a ministry who sent out a letter saying, if you give us $500, God will give you back $5,000. And the man that received this letter, he responded to them saying, it seems to me you need the money more than I do. How about you give me $500 so you can receive $5,000? Quite interesting, isn't it? What amazes me is that churches are happy to use the Old Testament verses and passages to promote giving, but throw out the rest of it when it comes to how to follow Yahweh and worship Yahweh. They throw it out when it comes to all these other things. Oh, we don't need to do that anymore, but we'll use it for when we want to take up a collection. Quite ironic. Now, yeah, we do need to give. We do need to make offerings, and we see this in Exodus 35, 4-9. And it says, and Moshe spoke to all the congregation of the children of Israel, saying, this is the thing which Yahweh has commanded, saying, take from among you an offering to Yahweh. Whoever is of a willing heart, let him bring it as an offering to Yahweh, gold, silver, and bronze, blue, purple, and scarlet thread, fine linen and goat hair, ram skins dyed red, badger skins and acacia wood, oil for the light and spices for the anointing oil, and for the sweet incense, onyx stones and stones to be set in the ephod and in the breastplate. So we do see that we need to take up offerings. You know, there are things that are needed. There are expenses to pay, and we'll cover that a bit later. So in regards with what I said before about they're happy with throwing out the Old Testament on other things, Malachi 3:6 says, for I am Yahweh, I do not change. Therefore you are not consumed, O sons of Jacob. And James, Yaakov 1:17 says, every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, and comes down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow of turning. And in Hebrews 13 verse 8 it says, Yeshua the Messiah is the same yesterday, today, and forever. So the reason why I'm bringing up these verses is God does not change. There's no variation, there's no shadow of turning. Yeshua is the same. So if that is true and the Bible is true, what was said in the beginning still applies to us today, and especially in regards to tithes and offerings, making offerings. The worship and following of Yahweh does not change. Yeshua didn't come to replace anything, but to restore all things. Okay, with that being said, now let's start to understand the biblical tithes and offerings. If people gave according to the biblical principles, there would be no lack. There are three main tithes that are all based in the Torah, in the laws and instructions and teachings of Yahweh. And there is a difference between the tithe and an offering. Tithing was based on agriculture. This was the biblical tithe, all based on the crops of both grains, fruit trees, olive trees, vineyards, animals. It was all tied to agriculture. And some of the feasts that we celebrate are around the harvest of these things. Now, the Hebrew word for tithe is Mahaser, which means tithe, or a tenth part. Mahaser is the tithe. Now, the root of Mahaser is Eser, and this also means the tithe, the number 10. This is the number 10, the word for the number 10 in Hebrew, removing 10%. And the verbal root is Aser, and it means to enrich, bless, and prosper. And it also means to lead to progress. That this whole idea of Mahaser, Aser, it's all designed to lead to progress, to move forward in a positive way. So the tithing was positive. It was to cause them to prosper and be blessed and to move forward if they chose to be obedient and do that. Now in Greek, the word used for Mahaser is dekatos. Dekatos. And this is where in English we get decimal from. Dekatos. Now, an example of these words, this Mahaser in our Bibles is Genesis 14:16-24. So he brought back all the goods, and also brought back his brother Lot and his goods, as well as the women and the people. And the king of Sodom went out to meet him in the valley of Shavah, that is, the king's valley. After his return from the defeat of Chedorlaomer, and the kings who were with him, then Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was the priest of God Most High. And he blessed him and said, Blessed be Abram of God Most High, possessor of heaven and earth, and blessed be God Most High, who has delivered your enemies into your hand. And he gave him a tithe of all. Verse 21, Now the king of Sodom said to Abram, Give me the persons and take the goods for yourself. But Abram said to the king of Sodom, I have raised my hand to Yahweh, God Most High, the possessor of heaven and earth, that I will take nothing, from a thread to a sandal strap, and that I will not take anything that is yours, lest you should say, I have made Abram rich, except only what the young men have eaten, and the portion of the men who went with me, Aner, Eshcol, and Memre. Let them take their portion. So Abram gave a tenth, a Mahaser, to Melchizedek. Notice here also Abram took nothing. He gave it all. He had a right, but he gave it all, lest they say that, we made you rich, we blessed you. No, Yahweh made Abram rich and Abraham rich. Leviticus 27:30-34. And all the tithe of the land, Mahaser, whether of the seed of the land or the fruit of the tree, is Yahweh's. It is holy to Yahweh. If a man wants at all to redeem any of his tithes, he shall add 1/5 to it. And concerning the tithe of the herd of the flock, or whatever passes under the rod, the 10th one shall be holy to Yahweh. And he shall not inquire whether it is good or bad, nor shall he exchange it, and if he exchanges it at all, then both it and the one exchanged for it shall be holy, and it shall not be redeemed. These are the commandments which Yahweh commanded Moses for the children of Israel at Sinai. Deuteronomy 14:22-29. You shall truly tithe, Mahaser, all the increase of your grain, that the field produces year by year, and you shall eat before Yahweh your God in the place where he chooses to make his name abide. The tithe of all your grain and your new wine and your oil, of the firstborn of your herds and your flocks, that you may learn to fear Yahweh your God always. But if the journey is too long for you, so that you are not able to carry the tithe, or if the place where Yahweh your God chooses to put his name is too far from you, whom Yahweh your God has blessed you, then you shall exchange it for money. Take the money in your hand and go to the place which Yahweh your God chooses. Verse 26, and you shall spend that money for whatever your heart desires, for oxen and sheep, for wine or similar drink, for whatever your heart desires you shall eat there before Yahweh your God. And you shall rejoice, you and your household, and you shall not forsake the Levite who is within your gates, for he has no part nor inheritance with you. And at the end of every third year you shall bring out the tithe of your produce, and of that year, and you store it up within your gates. And the Levite, because he has no portion nor inheritance with you, and the stranger and the fatherless and the widow who are within your gates may come and eat and be satisfied, that Yahweh your God may bless you in all the work which you put your hand to do. And this is what it may have been similar, like they brought their Mahaser, their tithe. You see here a picture of some grapes and a little bunch of grain there. They brought it unto Yahweh, brought it before Yahweh. So as mentioned earlier, there are 3 tithes. And these work in the 7-year cycle, known as the Shemitah cycle. So in Israel, in ancient Israel, Yahweh, there was a 7-year cycle for the land, and it was called Shemitah. And these 3 tithes coincided with that 7-year cycle. Now the first tithe is called the Mahaser Rishon, which is the first tithe. Now this tithe was given to the Levites / ministers of the temple for their service to Yahweh on behalf of the people. As we know, we read out the Levites had no inheritance. They had no portion. And they had no regular job. This is why they were given the tithe from the rest of the tribes, so they could eat and live. We read also in other passages with certain types of burnt offerings, they were given the skins or hides of the animals. It was taken to the Levitical cities as well as Jerusalem and was given to them. This was brought in years 1 through to 6 of the Shemitah cycle. And on the 7th year of the Shemitah cycle, the land rested. So here we have an example of this first tithe, the Mahaser Rishon. Numbers 18:21-31. Behold, I have given the children of Levi all the tithes in Israel as an inheritance in return for the work which they perform, the work of the tabernacle of meeting. Hereafter the children of Israel shall not come near the tabernacle of meeting, lest they bear sin and die. But the Levites shall perform the work of the tabernacle of meeting, and they shall bear their iniquity. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations, that among the children of Israel they shall have no inheritance. Verse 24, for the tithes of the children of Israel, which they offer up as a heave offering to Yahweh, I have given to the Levites as an inheritance. Therefore I have said to them, among the children of Israel, they shall have no inheritance. Then Yahweh shall speak to Moses, saying, Speak thus to the Levites, and say to them, When you take from the children of Israel the tithes which I have given you from them as your inheritance, then you shall offer up a heave offering of it to Yahweh, a tenth of the tithe. And your heave offering shall be reckoned to you as though it were the grain of the threshing floor, and as the fullness of the winepress. Thus you shall also offer a heave offering to Yahweh from all your tithes which you receive from the children of Israel, and you shall give Yahweh's heave offering from it to Aaron the priest. Of all your gifts you shall offer up every heave offering due to Yahweh, from all the best of them, the consecrated part of them. Therefore you shall say to them, When you have lifted up the best of it, then the rest shall be accounted to the Levites as the produce of the threshing floor and as the produce of the winepress. You may eat it in any place, you and your households, for it is your reward for your work in the tabernacle of meeting. So we see here was given to the Levites, to those who supported the tabernacle, the temple, who were doing the work of it. But they also had to make an offering, a tithe of what they received. So nobody was left out. Everybody had to give something. So the Levites even had to give a tithe, a Mahaser, of all they received. Now the second tithe is called Mahaser Rishon, and it's called the second tithe. Now this was taken to the temple at the feast times, especially Sukkot, and taken in years 1, 2, 4, and 5 of the Shemitah cycle. Not on the seventh as the land rested. This was for the people to spend rejoicing before Yahweh. A big feast was prepared, and they rejoiced or partied for 8 days. Now you don't hear that taught in most churches today. Part of the tithe was to spend on yourself, to rejoice and party before Yahweh at the time of tabernacles. Friends, this is still for today, for our God doesn't change. So in Deuteronomy 14, 22 to 26, we see this Mahaser Rishon, the second tithe. You shall truly tithe of all the increase of your grain that the field produces year by year. And you shall eat before Yahweh your God in the place where he chooses to make his name abide. The tithe of your grain and your new wine and your oil, of the firstborn of the herds of your flocks, that ye may learn to fear Yahweh your God always. Verse 24, but if the journey is too long for you, so that you are not able to carry the tithe, or if the place where Yahweh your God chooses to put his name is too far from you, when Yahweh your God has blessed you, then you shall exchange it for money. Take the money in your hand and go to the place which Yahweh your God chooses. And you shall spend that money for whatever your heart desires, for your oxen or sheep, for wine or similar drink, for whatever your heart desires, you shall eat there before Yahweh your God, and you shall rejoice, you and all your household. Wow, so we see this second tithe was for the people to spend on themselves, to rejoice and be glad before Yahweh. And we see this in the Feast of Tabernacles. We are commanded to rejoice before Yahweh. So we see the connection here that these are around the feast times, that they are to sell and to rejoice and to buy things, whatever their hearts desire, to party and have a rejoicing, blessed time in giving thanks to Yahweh. Now the third tithe was called the Mahaser Ani, and this is called the poor man's tithe. Now some say this is also part of the second tithe, but debate continues. Now this tithe was given in years 3 and 6 of the Shemitah cycle. Again, no tithing in the 7th year because the land rested. This is also viewed as what a lot of governments have in place as regards to welfare, disability and pension payments, and all the other benefits we have. In modern times, this is taken care of with our taxes. But the way this is being done is being done in man's way and not God's way. So I believe that the governments of this day has gotten this idea from the Bible, looking after the orphans, the widows, the strangers and the poor that are among us. And this is done through our taxes. But it is done man's ways, and therefore it's corrupted and not done as it should be done, and not done Yahweh's way. And we know that this system is corrupted in our modern day. God's way is always the best way. In Deuteronomy 14:27 to 29, we see this Mahaser Rishon, the poor man's tithe, and you shall not forsake a Levite who was within your gates, for he has no part nor inheritance with you. At the end of every 3rd year, you shall bring out the tithe of the produce of that year and store it up within your gates. And the Levite, because he has no portion nor inheritance with you, and the stranger, and the fatherless, and the widow who are within your gates may come and eat and be satisfied, that Yahweh your God may bless you in all the work that you put your hand to do. And again we see in Deuteronomy 26:12 to 19, when you have finished laying aside all the tithe of your increase in the 3rd year, the year of tithing, and have given it to the Levite, the stranger, the fatherless and the widow, so that they may eat within your gates and be filled, then you shall say before Yahweh your God, I have removed the holy tithe from my house, and also have given them to the Levite, the stranger, the fatherless and the widow, according to all your commandments, which you have commanded me. I have not transgressed your commandments, nor have I forgotten them. I have not eaten any of it when in mourning, nor have I removed any of it for an unclean use, nor given any of it for the dead. I have obeyed the voice of Yahweh my God, and have done according to all that you have commanded me. Verse 15, look down from your holy habitation from heaven and bless your people Israel, and the land which you have given us, just as you have sworn to our fathers, a land flowing with milk and honey. This day the Lord your God commands you to observe these statutes and judgments. Therefore you shall be careful to observe them with all your heart and with all your soul. Today you have proclaimed to Yahweh to be your God, and that you will walk in his ways and keep his statutes, his commandments and his judgments, and that you will obey his voice. Also today the Lord Yahweh has proclaimed you to be his special people, just as he promised you, that you should keep all of his commandments, and that he will set you high above all nations which he has made, in praise, in name and in honour, and that you may be a holy people to Yahweh your God, just as he has spoken. Friends, this is all tied to tithing and offering, being his special treasure, being blessed, being set apart from the rest of the nations. This is tied to offerings, tithing, giving the increase to the different people we just spoke about. Now, the famous passage that has been used countless times by many preachers to guilt people into giving. The Old Testament passage they like to use to support giving, but throw everything else out that Yahweh wants us to do to worship him in spirit and in truth. Let's have a look at this famous passage. Malachi 3:8-13. Will a man rob God? Yet you have robbed me. But you say, in what way have we robbed you? In tithes and offerings. You are cursed with a curse, for you have robbed me, even this whole nation. Bring all the tithes into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house, and try me now in this, says Yahweh of hosts, if I will not open for you the windows of heaven, and pour out for you such blessing that there will be not enough room to receive it. Verse 11, and I will rebuke the devourer for your sake, so that he will not destroy the fruit of your ground, nor shall the vine fail to bear fruit for you in the field, says Yahweh of hosts. And all the nations will call you blessed, for you will be a delightful land, says Yahweh of hosts. Your words have been harsh against me, says Yahweh, yet you say, what have we spoken against you? Now, you never ever hear them teach you the context of this passage, because they don't tell you the couple of verses before this famous passage that we just read out. Let's have a look at verses 6 and 7. The context of this famous passage is this. Malachi 3, 6 and 7. For I am Yahweh, I do not change, therefore you are not consumed, O Jacob. Yet from the days of your fathers have you gone away from my ordinances, and have not kept them. Return to me, and I will return to you, says Yahweh of hosts. But you shall say, but you said, in what way shall we return? And I encourage you to even go back to verse 1 of Malachi 3. This is all connected with following him and being obedient to him the way he set out in his teachings and instructions. Tithing is commanded. It's not a suggestion. The context of this passage is the third tithe. That is what the storehouses were for. They brought all their increase of the grains and the fruits of the trees and the grapes and all the animals. They brought it all in, stored up in the storehouses, the barns, for the Levites, the fatherless, the widows, the strangers, the poor. That's what this is talking about. See how important it is to get correct context? Next time, we're going to break all this down for what it means in the New Testament and what it means for you and me today. Friends, we need to get our understanding of tithes and offerings from the front of the book. It still applies for us today. So we're going to go into this next time. I hope this has been a blessing to you and encouragement to you. And I hope that you join me next time. Shalom.
Thank you for watching. We pray that this teaching has been a blessing to you. For more information, please go to www.ancientfoundationbiblefellowship.com. Shalom.